Yeah. So my book is a memoir. It's called Dear Universe, I Get It Now. Letters on the Art and Journey of Being Brave and Being Me. And it's literally a book of letters to the universe, as in the higher power, universe, galaxy, about, life's lessons on braving one's own path and being authentic in this world, not leaving anything up for chance or taking anything for granted, pushing through and owning who you are and what you want to do in the world, because we only get to do this thing once. And it recently won a Gold Book Award from the Nonfiction Author Association. So I'm very proud of that. I got this handsome roll of stickers that I can put on the covers of all of the books. And, given that this dream of mine at 5 was to have my own book with my name on it, and originally in gold lettering, that was very specific as a part of my childhood dream, I got pretty close with this gold sticker. So my 38-year-old self is very proud of my 5-year-old self and vice versa, because we did it. We made it. So this book came out in 2020. And I can't believe it's already 2023. So it will, it's already aging as far as books go. But the message is timeless and evergreen. And I'm continuing to get people who review the book on Amazon and Goodreads, who love it. Dear Universe has this beautiful little magic to it, in that so many people read it and then come to me and say, this book found me at the exact right time that I needed it. And that has been one of the most fun things about this book.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. My guest has got the coolest glasses in the world, so I'm feeling a little not as cool with my glasses now. So I'm a little jealous, but I'm also very happy to have with me today. Alyssa Berthiaume is with me today, and we are going to be talking about all kinds of things: writing, authorship, glasses, and more. Alicia, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so cool to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about, first of all, I'd like to share with everyone where you are in this great big world of ours.
I am in Burlington, Vermont.
Okay. So my wife and I went to Vermont for our honeymoon in October, and it was very expensive, but we went to Stowe, Vermont for our first night. And then we went to get gas the next day. We said, how do we get to the top of the mountain? And the guy at the gas station said, follow the yellow line. And I'm like, I guess he's been asked that one too many times. We're like, okay, just follow the yellow line. Can't be that hard, right? So really amazing there. We did bed and breakfast. One of them was called The Long Way In, and the driveway was like a mile. And so it was really a long way in. So really cool. But I love Vermont. So, and there's there's a floating bridge that we went to, and the bridge is on the water. And as you drive, you kind of get in the river, it's actually floating.
That's news to me. And I've lived here almost my whole life.
Right. And then the covered bridges are gorgeous. And we went horseback riding in the countryside. Anyway.
Oh yeah. No, it's very romantic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And fall, you can't beat the fall in Vermont. The foliage and the leaves are gorgeous. And definitely where you were, you get that mountain range, just on the interstate. And you cannot not feel, I think, some sort of presence of higher power when you're traveling through the state at that time of year.
And the nicest people in the world on top of everything. So we left our heart in Vermont. So it's beautiful. Excellent. Anyway, a commercial for Vermont to start the podcast. I love it. So we're not sponsored by Vermont, but hey, if you got some time, you want to go see the best colors in the fall, or you love skiing, or you just love great people, go to Vermont. Yeah. There you go. This commercial brought to you by Vermont.
Here's a fact people should know, though, is that the infamous Christmas movie, The White Christmas, which is my favorite, there is no such a place as the inn that the movie takes place at. That is fictional. Yeah. And I don't even know that it was shot in Vermont, in all honesty. But don't let that stop you from coming.
So growing up for me, I remember watching Newhart. And Newhart was all that, the inn type thing and all that. So that was kind of my thing when I was younger, I'm like, I love the idea of an inn and a bed and breakfast. I always thought it was pretty cool. So and we would get up and we would have breakfast with our host family, and we sitting around the table and the bus is coming, the kids are getting ready for school. You're like, this feels really cool to be in somebody's home. It was so unique, so nice. Anyway, great place to go. Everyone go there. Thank you for sharing. That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about your author journey. We're here on Living the Next Chapter, and we want to kind of go down that path. Where did all this start for you as far as your author journey? I'd like to kind of go back there.
Yeah. So my author journey began when I was 5.
Cool.
And I feel like that's really cliche. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I fell in love with writing and I've always wanted to be a writer. But unfortunately, in my case, it's not untrue. I am a cliche. I started to write in kindergarten. We were given our first black and white composition notebook to practice writing simple sentences and things. And then the top half of the pages had space to illustrate. And so I just fell in love with telling stories, typically about things that were real. So like, my cat at the time, or, playing outside with neighbors or riding my bike. But writing was the thing that just lit me up immediately. And I just knew like this internal intuitive knowing at 5 that I wanted to grow up and I wanted to write books. And it was a long and winding journey at that point, because it was kind of cute for a while. And adults in my life were like, oh, isn't that sweet? She wants to be a writer. And then, as college days approached, it was kind of like, well, what are you really going to do? And so then the messaging kind of changed, and the validation around this thing that I wanted to do wasn't really there as strongly as it had been. And so then I kind of had one foot in writing and one foot in psychology and mental health. And I thought that was going to be my breadwinner and writing would be on the side. And eventually was like, but I'm not going to not get a writing degree. So I went to undergrad and I got a double bachelor's, one of them being in creative writing. And then I went on to my master's program. And originally I started a master's in marriage and family therapy because I was still committed to this idea that the, social services field was going to be the breadwinner and writing would be something I did later. But I made it about a year into my master's program and realized I was miserable. It wasn't what I wanted to do the rest of my life. And I was letting myself down by not going for this thing that I've always believed was what I should be doing. So I changed masters and got a master's of fine arts in creative writing. And I thought that would be like, that was it. That was like the kickoff to, becoming the writer, the author, but life had other plans. And coming back to Vermont from college, which I did in Ohio, there weren't a lot of jobs here in Vermont that really directly utilized that master's of fine arts degree. So I ended up in nonprofit, and then I finally found a job in academic publishing, like the only one that existed in the state that like paid a good wage and had benefits. And then that one got bought and we all got laid off. And then I was in law, and then I was over here in tech, and writing was just kind of like waffling around, waiting to be given some attention this whole time as I was trying to like figure stuff out. And it wasn't until 2018, I was going through a divorce. I had just had a miscarriage. I had a 2-year-old. I was back living with my parents. I mean, life was just not awesome. And one of the things that got me through that period was going back to writing, blogging, and giving myself permission to have the time with this beautiful passion of mine that had kind of taken this back seat the entire time. And the more that I got back into writing and blogging, and the more I found myself again. And then my day job started to kind of fall apart in addition to all those other things. And so it was like the universe was handing me a giant invitation to step into what I had always known I should be doing and to go for it. And since there was nothing else to lose, I did it. And I jumped on the entrepreneurial journey. And within that same year, I started working on my first book. And by 2020, 2020, Dear Universe, I Get It Now, was out in the world.
There you go. So would you say that you are a writer in the beginning stages, or were you becoming more of a writer through that whole process? How did this kind of develop for you then, more as an adult looking at the writing process?
I think I was always a writer. I was becoming a better writer.
Okay. Yeah.
Writing was always a thing that I kind of leaned on or went back to. It was always like one of my strongest skill sets and strengths. It was always something that I enjoyed. But like those first stories and stuff that I wrote at 5 or 10 or whatever were horrible. I mean, there's no skill, no craft. Spelling and punctuation was terrible, all the things. But writing is a practice and it's an art. And like any practice or art, it requires consistency and development and a continual learning and practicing. I mean, so I think, I became a better, stronger writer, but I've always been one. And I continue to improve. The more that I write for other people, and the more that I write for myself, the better my writing continues to be.
Okay, so let's pick up on writing for other people. What are some of the things you've done in the past that we can talk about? I know some of the things you've done where you're kind of done as a ghostwriter and things like that. But what have you done for other people that have brought you joy as a writer?
The biggest thing for me in working with other people on their books is actually not the book itself. It's the seeing and hearing people when they're sharing their story, which will ultimately go into the book. Yeah. But it's kind of holding space for them and allowing them to speak their truth and honor their experience. And I'm like a person who can reflect back to them, that must have been tough, or, you're a lot stronger than you give yourself credit for. Or isn't it interesting that, those things happened, but now here you are, and this, that, and the other thing seem to be some sort of effect or result of what you've been through. There's like a mirroring, I guess, that happens. And in that mirroring, they have a whole different way of maybe seeing their experience, of seeing themselves, of being able to make peace with certain things that have happened, or to understand how those really horrible things have also provided a number of kind of collateral blessings. And to be a little bit more healed, as a process, as a part of the process of sharing with me the thing that they ultimately want to turn into a book.
So how do you separate your writing style and who you are and your lived experiences and your lens, you're talking about your glasses, your lens on how you write? How do you correlate that with writing for someone else where you don't seem to come up in the writing and you're trying to elevate the person you're writing for? How do you kind of balance the two? Because I would think that your personal writing style would come up and shine, and you're like, wait, that's not my person I'm helping. I'm trying to raise them up. How do you balance the two?
So part of it, I think, is knowing the process versus style. So the writing process, regardless of the client that I'm working with, I'm going to go through a very similar process with all of them. We're going to talk about what they want to achieve. We're going to talk about the material that they want to present or the story they want to share. We're going to outline the material in a way that makes sense to the reader and achieves their goals. And then we're going to draft, we're going to revise, we're going to draft, revise, right? So the steps that we take to bring the story from blank page to full manuscript are going to be the same steps. They might vary in terms of how long they take or whatever, but they're the same steps. Stylistically is kind of where individual voice or way of expressing something is going to come into play. And so that's where we need to understand, okay, how does this person show up in the world? Okay. Are they somebody who is very reserved and calculated and intentional with the way that they deliver material? If that's the case, then that's probably how the book should come across. If there's somebody who has a lot of levity and they make light of a lot of things and they use humor as a way to express themselves and to tell their story, then we want to make sure that that kind of punchy, irreverent tone and personality comes into the writing. Typically, my clients have a pretty strong sense of how they want their writing to come across. Well, I want it to be honest and vulnerable, or I want it to be straightforward and matter of fact. And they also usually have an awareness of how they're trying to reach their reader. And so if they know that their reader, for instance, is a startup founder who's got the attention span of a gnat, they know that they don't want long chapters because they're trying to reach their ideal reader, and they know their ideal reader doesn't have a lot of time, right? Other people might see their ideal reader as, like, let's say, they want to reach the person who's also had the similar experience as them, child abuse or divorce or grief and loss. So in knowing that part about the reader, then we know that we might want to evoke emotion. We want to make them feel like they can see themselves in this person's story. And so now we might be using different types of craft principles of writing to evoke that emotion: sensory detail, dialogue, action, scene. So it's really understanding the reader. It's understanding the motives behind the work, the goals that the author wants to accomplish, and also understanding the author themselves.
How different is it to write for somebody else than compared to writing your own works?
It's a very different lift.
Yeah.
It's the difference really is like, between having to go to the file room and look for the things that you don't know exist, and not needing to get away from your desk at all because everything is filed and stored up top.
Nice.
When you're writing for yourself, you've got your own memories, your own experiences, your own voice, like, all of that. And you might need to do a little bit of digging to, like, remember the year or the name of something or a particular detail, right? But more or less, you're like 90% there because it's you're well-versed in you. When you're writing for somebody else, you have to get to know them to the depths that you know yourself. Wow. And that's not something that happens by osmosis, and it's not something that happens quickly. And even when you know somebody really well and you know their story, you think, well, as you actually sit down to write their book, especially in the case of memoir, you'll be surprised at how many things you don't know that you have to then go and ask. I might know that a certain scene happens where this person and that person talk inside a room, but now all of a sudden I don't know what the other person sounds like. I don't know what they might be wearing. I don't know what gestures they might normally use. I might not know what the room looks like. I might not know what my person who I'm writing for, what they were thinking at the moment, if they were fidgeting. I mean, there's so many, like, minute details that now you have to go and get and source in order to make that scene or that chapter really come to life. In kind of straighter nonfiction, business books, leadership, sales, whatever, those are a little more cut and dry because you're not trying to develop characters, right? In the same way you're not developing scenes. But if you don't know that industry, or you don't know that niche, or you don't have the expertise that your client does, you're still having to ask a ridiculous amount of questions. Go and look at the other material that they published, listen to their interviews, perhaps watch their keynotes, scour through their blogs, to not only study their voice and how they're already naturally writing content out in the world, but also to study the content so that you appear to know what you're talking about, because everybody's going to be expecting that this person knows what they're talking about because they believe that they're the one who wrote it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Because in a typical book, an author will submit it for editing, and it'll come back with suggestions, and there's edits that happen between the author and the editor. But you're kind of in the middle between editing and the person you're helping to write the book for. Is it hard to take notes from an editing feedback and take it back to the person, or are you handling it? It seems like one more extra step that most authors wouldn't have to even think about.
Yeah, when you're writing for yourself, I mean, you're going to go to an outside opinion, right? A developmental editor, line editor, proofreader, whoever it is at whatever stage. And then you're going to have this kind of one-to-one relationship, right? Because you're the author and they're giving you the direct feedback. In a ghostwriting kind of instance, for me, I always try to employ a developmental editor if I can, and I've got time and we've got budget for it. Because by the time we're ready for that, I'm so close to the project, I can't see it objectively anymore. And I want the objective opinion to make sure that I haven't failed in my job, and also that the author doesn't feel like we failed when they put that book out there into the world.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's a matter of like creative license, I guess, meaning that we can get feedback from an outside editor. If I don't agree with it or the author doesn't agree with it, we have the choice to say, thank you, but we're good on this particular point. Like, we're not going to. But if it's something that's super valid and both of us see it, then it's likely something that needs to be fixed, because if they're pointing it out and the two of us also agree, then we've got three people who are all seeing the same error or thing that could be improved.
That makes sense. In general terms, from the moment somebody reaches out to you and asks for help in writing something and working on a project, again, there's a lot of things that could go into this answer, but what's a general time frame for you to work with somebody from initial contact to a book in their hand? Are we talking months and months and months, a year? Like, can you give us a little time frame idea?
Yeah. So with one client, it was a coaching capacity. So she was doing all the writing, but I was coaching. From the moment that we started just planning out the book to the moment that it came out into the world, 18 months.
Okay.
For a ghostwriting client, I like a minimum of 12, but that doesn't mean that it might not go longer, depending on the size of the manuscript, scope of the project, how clean was our first draft, and now what do we need to do to revise, and a number of other things, life happening and throwing off the schedule or the timeline. And certainly if people come in either instance, coaching or ghostwriting, if they come in and they are very unclear on their idea, they're not really sure what they're trying to say yet, and we have to do a lot of kind of conceptualizing and envisioning work, then we could take longer to do that before we actually get started in the actual drafting, right? Because if we don't know where we're going, that draft's going to be a mess. Yeah. And we're going to feel like it's just a constant uphill climb.
It's fascinating to get a little peek behind the scenes about all of this, because when you see a book on the shelf, you just, for the most part, you naturally assume that the author wrote the book. And why would I even wonder? A question. But then the other side of me is like, if I was a ghostwriter, I would be going past the shelf going, I wrote that book. My name's not on the cover, but that's my baby, right? I'd be like, I'd want to tell everyone that's my baby, but I can't really tell you that's my baby. So is it awkward in that sense where you have books out there that no one has any idea that you were a part of?
A handful of years ago when I was getting my degree, the idea of ghostwriting was appalling to me.
Okay.
My ego was huge, which I think most 20-year-olds it is. And I was like, no way would I write somebody else's stuff and then not get a single credit for it. And that has shifted so much. I just feel honored to be able to do something that other people either don't have the skill or the time to do, but that is very much theirs, right? Yeah. It's their story, it's their message, it's what they want to say. I'm putting maybe words together in a beautiful way or in a way that they didn't think to do it. But ultimately, I'm really just trying to speak on their behalf, but it's them, truthfully. And so the credit does belong to them. I got paid for the service of writing the words. And I'm good with that. Yeah. But the other thing too is that I've had some very generous clients. The first person that I ghost wrote a book for, she said in the acknowledgments, and I want to thank my ghostwriter. Like, I was the most visible ghostwriter for that book, like known, and wow. I'm working on a book right now where the client doesn't want to have their name appear by itself and have anybody think that they penned a word. And so they would like it to appear as their name and then with, and then my name. And so I will now be known for working on this book by just, that slight addition of with, and then, my name also appearing on the cover with them. Others have acknowledged me, in the back section of their book under acknowledgments, and maybe they've chosen to say book coach or editor or use some other word that doesn't out me as their ghostwriter, but they want to acknowledge the service that I've provided, along the journey. And frankly, that enough, just a thanks in the back, is beautiful and wonderful. It's the experience that I hold on to, what I learn about myself and about people and about writing in the process of being the ghost or the coach, that really serves me the most.
So how directly has the lessons you've learned as a ghostwriter impacted your personal writing then?
I feel like I write cleaner and more efficiently in my own writing because I'm such a constant flow of writing for everybody else. But at the same time, actually sitting down to do the writing is the hardest for me now. Self-discipline, because I am so tapped out energetically in writing for everyone else that it's very difficult to prioritize my own writing at the end of the day after spending hours, working on other people's books. So I'm figuring that part out right now.
It's an interesting balance, right? Because it's like, I'm assuming, in a sense, as an outside perspective, that writing for yourself is more relaxing and more something you do for yourself, and then everything you do for everyone else seems more like a job, in a sense. Is that kind of how it feels? A little bit like that?
That is very true. The problem here is that I have an extreme accomplishment identity, overachievement identity that I'm always battling. And maybe I need to go to one of those neuro-linguistic programming people and have them do some head work. But I often prioritize everybody else, regardless if it's work or not, ahead of my own writing, seeing it as more necessity than my own creativity because it pays the bills and it keeps the lights on and it's my livelihood. So the focus and the emphasis and the priority goes there. And then it's like, if I've got anything left, maybe I'll sit down and write a few words. But likely it's like, I'm done with the screen. I'm done with the keyboard.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to go for a walk. Yeah. Like I need to unplug and not be, and so actually one of the creative solutions I had for this was I asked for a typewriter for my birthday.
With the whole
cling,
cling,
yes,
everything. Ding.
Yes, exactly. I asked for a typewriter for my birthday because I thought, well, maybe the more tactile, the sound, the motion, the not having a screen and actually having a physical piece of paper might inspire a different wave of energy and creativity that was different than sitting down to another laptop or desktop computer and facing a bright, shiny screen. And, so I got a typewriter at the beginning of this month for my birthday. And now I'm figuring out how to use it because it's actually not at all intuitive. It is very complicated.
It doesn't underline misspelled words. You can swear at it now because you make a mistake. You're like, oh, this is great.
There are buttons and levers and things that I'm like, I took a bath last night and read the manual, because I was trying to figure out how I was going to use this efficiently. I'm very excited, but it's a bit of a process.
I love it too. And the two keys get tied up together and they both hit the paper at the same time. You get this weird new letter that you've created. You're like, oh, that's nice. What is that? Cool. Okay, so let's talk about what you have written yourself. You said before we hit record that you kind of won some small award for your book, which sounds amazing. I'm saying small in a joking way, but tell me about your book and the award. What's going on here?
Yeah, so my book is a memoir. It's called Dear Universe, I Get It Now, Letters on the Art and Journey of Being Brave and Being Me. And it's literally a book of letters to the universe, as in the higher power, universe, galaxy, about, life's lessons on braving one's own path and being authentic in this world, not leaving anything up for chance or taking anything for granted, pushing through and owning who you are and what you want to do in the world, because we only get to do this thing once. And it recently won a Gold Book Award from the Nonfiction Author Association. So I'm very proud of that. I got this handsome roll of stickers that I can put on the covers of all of the books. And, given that this dream of mine at 5 was to have my own book with my name on it, and originally in gold lettering, that was very specific as a part of my childhood dream, I got pretty close
gold sticker
with this gold sticker. So my 38-year-old self is very proud of my 5-year-old self and vice versa, because we did it. We made it.
When did that book come out?
So this book came out in 2020. And I can't believe it's already 2023. So it will, it's already aging as far as books go. Yeah. But the message is timeless and evergreen. And I'm continuing to get people who review the book on Amazon and Goodreads, who love it. Dear Universe has this beautiful little magic to it in that so many people read it and then come to me and say, this book found me at the exact right time that I needed it. And that has been one of the most fun things about this book.
When a book finds you. I love that. That's really nice. Tell me about some of the reviews you heard back. What else are people saying about the book?
People find it to be something that both makes them laugh and cry. Somebody compared it to snuggling up on the couch and eating a warm cookie, which was kind of fun.
Nice.
And I've had people take pictures of it, poolside with them. Somebody even took a picture of it once wearing sunglasses and had a towel wrapped around it, which was hilarious. And I've had a lot of people who have related to either the childhood wonder and imagination that kind of gets lost along the way. Other people have really related to the overachievement chapter and how much we tend to focus on doing and accomplishment and external validation more than how we show up and intrinsic value and those types of things. So it's been really interesting which chapters are things that people have hung on to. But what I love about it is that it's hit people from all places, all ages, all races, all orientations.
Nice.
And that makes me so incredibly happy because while I didn't specifically mean to write a book that would necessarily speak to all people, it really has in some way. And I think that's a really incredible result.
So we have listeners that have joined us because you're on the show, and that's amazing because they have the book, they have it wrapped in a towel with sunglasses, as you say. They're here to hear you on the podcast. I would love to give you the opportunity to talk to them directly. I'm moving out of the way. What would you like to say to your readers who have supported you and purchased the book and shared the book with others? What would you like to say to them?
I could not have done any of this without knowing that there was at least one person on the other side needing this book. But the fact that I now know that so many of you need this book fills me up to the brim. Writing this book, I was so fearful that no one would get it. No one would appreciate it, that I was out of my mind for trying to say the things that I wanted to say, that I wasn't old enough or experienced enough or whatever enough to write this book. And I never even considered how many people might love it, how many people might rally around me. And whether I have known you or you're a complete stranger, your love, your loyalty, your fanship has all meant the absolute world. And you really have made a little girl's dream come true. And the next book for sure is for all of you because I know how much you loved this first one.
Nice. And for an author that's struggling with the same deep thoughts that you were in creating this book, what would you say to them as they kind of struggle their way through and trying to get their words on paper?
So my favorite thing to say to people who are trying to do this, now that I've been through it, is stop thinking about pleasing the masses, because the masses are just a crowd of faceless folks that don't matter. Focus on one person that you would like to reach, that you know your book needs to get to.
Right.
Focus on them the whole time. And I guarantee that if you can focus on the one and you can write for the one and the one person is impacted, then there will be more. But don't think about everyone at first. Just think about that one person who really needs your book, and that will set into motion the ripple effect that you're looking for.
I love it. Okay, so I have a question for you that I've never asked. I have 190 episodes, 190 authors have come through. I've never thought to ask this question before. But based on the answers you're giving and the path you're taking us on, I feel like I could lob this to you, and I'm probably going to get a really interesting answer. So no pressure, but here we go. In podcasting right now, in content creation, everyone is flipping out about AI.
I'm so glad you're asking.
AI tools, this, and this, and we won't give them all credit for all. There's so many. There's new ones every day. Every 5 minutes, there's another one. So everyone is like, I'm just going to use these tools and they're going to help me write my story or create my podcast or do my Instagram. They're going to do all this thing for me. And I'm just going to push a button and see what happens. From your perspective, are you embracing AI? Does it help you? What are your thoughts as you kind of see the world reacting in such a way to all the AI tools that are out there right now?
So 2 words that you said are really operative: tools and helpful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Tools and helpful. So my position is really, AI, it's neutral. It's about the person using it and how they're using it and their motives for using it and the ways that you're using it that then make it, quote unquote, good or bad, right? Effective or not effective, ethical or not ethical, full of integrity or not full of integrity, right? We are behind the machine. We had this debate probably when computers and the internet came around, and now we're having it again with AI. We are in control. We are the ones pushing the buttons and whatever. So we're bringing our own motives and our own expectations into the use of these things. Can they be helpful? Yes. I have a client who uses like ChatGPT to kind of do the first scrub of getting some ideas generated for a blog post, right? But then that's where it stops. Like it's almost more like a brainstorming tool in that instance. I have another client who uses some AI tools to help visualize settings that they're writing about in their fiction novel. And then that inspires new ideas that they didn't otherwise have because they could see a visual of what they already knew. So somebody was telling me about an AI tool that helps with business SOPs. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit there and write my own SOPs. I would use a tool for that kind of efficiency. But again, tools, and they're being used to assist or help, not do, not perform 100%, or at least that's my take, that they shouldn't be used 100%. Like, when have we ever been able to push a button or have this one size fits all approach to anything and been successful? Like, we never have. I don't think AI is really going to change that. I think AI, if we all just start pushing the button blindly, is going to make a mess of things because we're not using it correctly.
Right.
But also, it's just going to make everything be really generic. Because it's just spitting out information based on what it's curating or whatever that's already out there and exists. And so especially when it comes to writing a book, my biggest pet peeve is when I hear people say, I wrote a book with ChatGPT. And I really have a problem with this because writing is an action which requires your involvement. When you put in a prompt for a book into ChatGPT, you're not writing it, you're prompting it. You are prompting a book out of ChatGPT.
Nice.
You're not writing a book with ChatGPT. And I don't think, I haven't tested it, but I don't think ChatGPT is working as like, okay, Chat, you put in one sentence of the story and then I'll put in the next. And so now we're collaborating on a book. So this idea of like somebody sitting at home generating a 40,000 word story or book with an AI program and them saying that they've written it. No, you're probably sitting there with your heels up, waiting for the thing to generate all 40,000 words. Now, if you've then taken that and you've worked on it, then you've revised it or you've edited it, but you still haven't written it. And then you need to understand, like, is it really that great of a book, or is it very generic and very vanilla because this artificial intelligence has created this thing? Artificial intelligence cannot replace authenticity and your intelligence. So if you want to be known, you want your work to be great, do the work.
So,
mic drop.
I love it. So I'm a musician, and my response would be, a good song can be played around the campfire on an acoustic guitar and still have quality without all the fluff and all the extras. Right down to its basics, and it's been performed by the person who wrote it, or it can be stripped down and performed in a really simple way. And when you come to your book and come to writing, even if you use these tools to help you, it's got to come back down to the author at the end of the day, sitting around the campfire, telling the story, where the true authorship of whatever you've created will be on full display, and you can't hide behind any of these tools. Your typewriter is not connected to the internet, and AI can't help you. So you have to know how to write, right?
Yeah.
So I've never asked that question to anyone, and I'm so happy I asked you, because that's what I was hoping to hear from you. And I love the authenticity side of that. And I'm a little nervous that in a world of everyone trying to do the microwave attempts of being creative, push a button and then I can just go and watch TV. I just feel like we're going to water down our message over time if we rely on these tools too much. So I like your
Well, it's not even creativity, really, when you think about it. If you're just hitting a button, that's not creativity.
Right.
That's instant gratification. Creativity is always about process. It's about getting your hands dirty. It's about exploring, whether that's music or paint or clay or words, whatever medium you're playing in, you're playing. It's imagination, it's action, it's activity, it's mind and body connection through whatever expression or form, right? So if you're just hitting a button and you're walking away to go binge watch something on Netflix, like, you're not being creative, and you're not an artist if that's what people are going for. Like, like anything done well, you got to work for it. Like, and it doesn't mean that the work has to be hard or unpleasing or unentertaining, but you need to be the one that's present and available for that. And I think, to some extent, I wonder, I don't have any data, but I wonder, are people like, oh, well, with the wave of self-publishing and now all these AI tools, I can like maybe make a buck, like just pumping out all of these manuscripts and going this self-publishing option and like be rich, like all the people that I see in the sponsored ads all over the social media, and I'm thinking what people don't realize is that those people who are doing really well for themselves based off of self-published books on Amazon, they're not just cranking out useless material and then like letting it sit there and it's just generating big sales for them. There is a process there too, and there's action and intention and a strategy, and probably their stuff isn't complete loads of crap. Anybody who thinks that they're just automatically going to make a ton of money off a book, like they're reaching for that like 1%. That's not a majority of the rest of us who have published books. And that's also not usually how you make money off of your book. So if that's the motivation, then they need to understand more about the publishing industry and how it actually works and how you make money off your book, because it's not just like you hit print, you upload it somewhere, and then, the book fairies come and, send you a bunch of money.
Gold stickers fall from the heavens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So in a world where everything's going more vanilla, then when people are using tools, maybe in the wrong way, I heard somebody say you can use AI tools as an assistant, but never as an employee. And I'm like, that's good. I like that. So, but people are starting to use them as employees. The one thing I think that makes people stand out then is an authentic story that's told from your point of view as the writer, as the creator, because you lived it. So you talking about yourself at 5 and your orientation story of how you got to where you are today can't be duplicated by any kind of AI tool because it's your story.
Absolutely not.
So lean heavily into your story. And just by doing that, you're going to be more unique than a large mass of other authors and creators because they're using tools without really understanding the impact of it.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, there's actually a massive opportunity right now for the people who are not going that direction, right?
The people with typewriters, yeah.
I mean, the more vanilla everybody becomes by just relying on these tools to speak for them, the more that the people who aren't are going to rise above because they're not going to sound like the drones, flying overhead.
There it is. That's exactly what I was hoping I was going to get from you today. And I'm so happy that you jumped on that. And I could tell there's a little bit of fire there. And that's what I love. I love. All right. That's great. Okay. So again, where's the book available? Where do we go? And give us a little hint. What's coming next? I'd like to know that too.
Yeah. So just to answer your first question. So Dear Universe, I Get It Now can be available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can buy it direct from me. You can also find it on bookshop.org if people want to support their indie and local bookstores. Bookshop.org is great because then you can go and get it from kind of a smaller fish who definitely needs your purchase to stay afloat. So I would definitely promote bookshop.org over the giants. So you can find it in all those places. And what's next? So, well, there's a couple of things. So one, I'm collaborating and co-authoring a book with a colleague of mine, the title of which we are still finalizing. But that will be out early 2024. And it is for the aspiring independent author who doesn't know a thing about writing, publishing, and making money off of their book.
Good.
David, this book is for you. No.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that. That is going to be a mammoth. It's huge. We went way beyond what we thought because we just could not help ourselves. But we're hoping it's going to be this like beautiful desk reference, like the thing that everybody's going to have within arm's reach, sitting right next to them. Good. To go. It's packed with information, tons of appendices, checklists, templates, exercises. I mean, just the whole kit and caboodle. Trying to give everything we've got to make it kind of a one-stop shop kind of book for that kind of author. Apart from that, I started a second memoir last year. I've had to put it on pause. The timing wasn't quite right. I'm really looking forward to getting back to that once this manuscript, this other one I was just mentioning, is kind of off my desk. And that is a second memoir, loosely titled right now, When I Die, and tracks a special relationship that I had with a woman that's actually a character in Dear Universe. So it's picking up on kind of one story thread and really focusing on this relationship and her death and my role in her crossing over.
Wow. Okay, so please come back when the next ones are ready. I'd love to have you back and just talk more, right? And I want to get an update on the typewriter because I think that's cool. That's so awesome. Thank you for being on the podcast. I love laughing with you and hearing your insights, and very inspirational for the audience as well to be part of this. So thank you for making time to be part of this. It's great.
Thank you for the invite. And I will definitely come back.
Okay. All right. I'll hold you to I will hold you to that. Everyone, please go check out all the show notes and everything. And you'll find links. And I love bookshop.org. Great suggestion. Everyone, please head over there. Support these local mom and pop shops and these little places that really could use your support. That's great. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. Thank you for being part of Living the Next Chapter. Hey, look, we're having such a great time talking to authors around the world. If you are an author and you would like to be on this very show, I would love to talk to you. livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com, livingthenextchapter.com is the best way to get in touch with us. There you'll find our social media and blah, 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 la-di-da, and such. You, author, soon-to-be author, new author, currently writing your book author, published author, we need you here. The seat's empty, microphone set up, we're waiting for you. livingthenextchapter.com. We would love to have you on the podcast. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Yeah, you should be here. See you at livingthenextchapter.com.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.